Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Paving the Ways podcast. Today, we have a special guest on, and that's Victoria REDBARD. Victoria is a speaker, author, researcher, open relating expert, and founder of the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy. Her sexuality school, the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy, offers deep learning into the psychosocial and somatic aspects of cutting-edge sexuality education that's impacting the globe and creating cultural change worldwide. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So for the listeners, me and Vic met very briefly some years ago through a friend, and I went to her house and bought a yoni egg from her, and with the egg my intention was to receive financial abundance, which after that I definitely did. And then some years later I've now just completed her 6-month training at the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy, so I'm really excited to have this conversation. So to give the listeners a bit of an insight into your life, what could a day in the life of Victoria REDBARD at the moment look like?
It's pretty amazing, actually, right now. I just had my birthday like 2 days ago, so it's just like, yeah, I'm like, oh my God, it just is like, is this what 30 is? Because it's pretty fucking great. Yeah, I've just been, well, even the past week, actually, like the past week's been pretty magical. So the weekend I presented at Taste of Love Festival, which is like the largest tantra festival in Australia. And then and just put on this workshop, and I got to deliver. I was really excited actually because I got to deliver like something that was actually a bit edgy and new, and like what we were bringing to the festival was something that was very different from everything else that was at the festival. And that's really kind of where I like to hang out. I guess that's why I call it the new paradigm of intimacy, because it's like I really like things that are kind of cutting edge, and I like to figure out what's going on in the collective and bring like shine some light on those pieces. So that's also a lot of what my day looks like. It's like formulating my ideas. Um, right now, I'm just like working on a bit of a crypto project with a friend of mine. So I like to hang out with him a lot. I'm learning a lot about all the different things and like how we can actually create like the sexuality development industry to back all of the people that I take through the institute, because I feel like what I want to see is like a really clear pathway. You know, when I was working in when I first came out, my little name was Tantric Witch. That was like something that like came to me in a medicine journey. And I was like, whoa, like people are never going to understand this, you know, like what the hell is a tantric witch, you know? And then I came back to Australia and I was like, started to like find this pathway, you know? And I started, and I like the name of your podcast because it actually really feels accurate for what I've had to do. It's like I've had to literally like dig the pathway out to figure out the way through this thing. So my main passion, I guess, is like setting up the new earth, a new paradigm, to reflect it, to be easy for people like yourself who have come from through the school to find their way. You know, so a lot of I guess a day-to-day life for me right now looks like meeting, innovating, like people listening to my ideas, like me. I feel really supported right now, actually. I think that's what I'm really enjoying about being 30. I was like, wow, like actually, so last night, so this is actually another great thing that happened in my day yesterday, because it was my birthday party. I hired out a spa, like a bathhouse. So it's like lots of jacuzzis, like a steam room and stuff like that. And I had a naked sparty, which is like a naked party within the spas. So I had like 15 of my close friends, and I just like yeah, just got everyone over to this spa, and we just like had cake and like hung out naked and like just like spoke about all the cool projects we're doing, like most of the people that are in my like close circle. So there's another thing I'm really enjoying about my life, like all of my really good friends are in my team, you know. And what was really dawning on me last night, and I mean, I should have really picked this up a long time ago, but you know how things like land in different times of your life. One of the things that was landing for me was, oh my God, I have like a big group of people that want to get behind my vision and actually are waiting for me to go, okay, which way are we going, you know?
Mm.
And that was huge for me. I was like, Of course, I knew that. I mean, I have everything in my life that shows me that, but it was like, it was just really like dropping in for me on a different level last night of like, these people want to follow you into battle. They want to like know what's up, you know? And
Mm,
yeah, like, and I have just been seeing that in so many different ways. Like even people that have worked in my business and left my business for their own expansion, I still like know, how can I support you? How can I be in your vision? And I'm like, oh, this is because we do really good relationships, you know, like, and that's obviously a really good big passion of mine, is like relationships and how to have them successfully. Um, so yeah, I'm really kind of basking in all that I've created at the moment. So it's a really beautiful time for me to come and share with you this piece around the podcast. And I think that's what my day looks like: innovating, um, sharing with my vision with my team, implementing a lot of different cool things that are going to support the industry and support, yeah, like the creation of what sex and sexuality development can look like in this next chapter of life that we're all stepping into.
beautiful. Yeah, something I've been thinking about today, because I've been receiving some support from friends around this podcast and putting it out. And I think it's one thing to believe in yourself, but when other people can see that, like, the vision that you hold, and also maybe like even the higher parts of you that you can't even see yourself, it really makes me feel so elevated. And it kind of, for me, relates into witnessing. So the modality of the institute is self pleasure. And when we do, for the listeners, sessions for our clients, we witness them in their self pleasure practice. And I'm really curious what you think, Vic, was like, what's actually happening when we see another in these parts that maybe they didn't see themselves, or they didn't feel like they could express or show anyone. Like, what's happening when we witness?
Yeah, I love this question. Yeah, you know, so this was something that kind of formulated for me. Obviously, the Institute of Paradigm Intimacy came from the work that I was doing in my one-on-one sessions. And at some point, I realized I wasn't a yoni massage, or I wasn't a lingam massage person, and that wasn't my gifts, you know. And from there, sort of formulated this experience of me, opening up people to understand what self-pleasure was, and how self-pleasure wasn't masturbation. So what I started to recognize is, like, you know, masturbation is like, right, we're going to be with the body, we're going to have an orgasm, we're going to have arousal, we're going to have pleasure of some sort, and we're going to make that happen. So we're going to tell the body that's what needs to happen. And then I started to like introduce people into this concept of like self-pleasure. I'm like, if you don't make anything happen and you just allow your body to start speaking to you, and you like, just allow the cells in your body to open and show you what needs to happen next, and where you need to bring your touch, and where you should allow the sound to come from inside of you, where you can really breathe in what it's actually communicating to you. It changes the way that we start to experience sex as a concept. It's like we stop seeing sex as it being like, oh, it starts when we put a penis in a vagina, you know, or and it ends when a man comes. Like, we stop like viewing sex in that way. I start like open it, and what I feel like is happening, um you know, that's one thing we see like how our body's actually constantly communicating to us. And one way that I describe that is like, you know, when we go into nature, nature is constantly like offering messages that are not, that are beyond words that we can hear, beyond the language of like British English or whatever we want to call it. You know, it's like, it's it's a language of like, that you feel different when you finish walking through nature. And this is what I've started to see was happening in my one-on-one sessions, was like people were just getting a whole different reference point for what sex was. So that's one thing that I see that happens when people are being witnessed in the self-pleasure. The other piece is that you're literally being viewed by in the eyes of unconditional love. Like, and when somebody can see you in the wholeness and the fullness of who you are as a human being, in the most intimate, vulnerable expression of yourself, you know, which can involve genital touch, which could involve being naked, but it could also mean just being fully clothed and holding your heart and crying, you know, or it could be, you know, raging out and moving all the emotion that's in your body and just actually holding like a reverence for all that is human. Like people flourish, people like open to parts of themselves and get to speak to parts of themselves that they didn't even know were inside of themselves. Because what's actually happened in our lifetimes is that, you know, we've been bogged down by all this conditioning, all these ideas, all these beliefs, all these ways that we think we need to be a human being. And the truth is that we can't even access the truth of our humanity on our own. And it takes really a lot of presence and a lot of openness from somebody else to really like find what our nervous system is actually wants to unravel into. And so for me, this is like one of the major gifts of witnessing. And what I feel like a lot of the students at the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy have is like such an open mind and open heart to everything that sex can be, and a deep understanding in themselves that they've actually like, you know, they say that phrase of like, you can only go as far as you're willing to meet yourself. And it's like that what I'm seeing from my students now is like this place inside of themselves that they've gone so deep and gone so far inside of themselves that they just naturally open that up for other people. And that's really what fills me up, and what my experience has been of like recognizing the power and the potency of self witnessing people in their self pleasure is like the understanding of people. It's like people are surprised at how deep they'll go in my presence because of how deep I've gone inside of myself. And I just watch them just like, they don't even know. It's not even like one layer of them comes online. It's like, the way I describe it to people is like, you know, when you go to see a Christmas tree and then all the lights come on the Christmas tree, like that's what I describe it to be like. And I think like that's been what my experience has been like, you know, there's certain men or like partners that I've been with that I'm like, whoa, like I didn't even know that part of my sexuality. Like you're just like switching on all the lights on my Christmas tree right now. And I'm like, oh shit, like there's so much of me coming online. It's like I'm safe. My vulnerability is welcomed and everything can happen here. And yeah, that's what I've been tracking with all these beautiful pieces with sexuality and what can happen when we love each other in that way.
Yeah, I've definitely found like over the past few months that people just start opening up and telling me all these things that they say they never told anyone. And it's like on that cellular level, their body can just feel that it's safe to tell me that I'm not going to judge them or that it's like unacceptable for them to do this or think this or have this thing. And it feels like an honor to be able to receive people in that and in their full self, or even just a small part of their current self. I wonder like how going into the body, do you think helps us find out how we want to live life, how we want to do things, and actually like what we even want to need, and then how to get what we want to need?
Yeah. Well, do you know what I think first and foremost is that it actually gives you access to what you really fucking want, rather than all the bullshit that we
Mm,
convince ourselves that we need. It's like, oh my God, like I think most of us actually don't even know how to claim our true desires. You know, it's like to actually say out loud, this is what I want. And I find edges of that all the time. And not so much around sex anymore, but like often around my vision. I'm like, fuck, I want a big team of people that are going to get behind me and are going to get in my brain and help me formulate this thing so that I can see come into life. I'm like, that's kind of unreasonable asking someone like, you know. But it's like the more the closer I step to like creating that. And actually, you know, what you said to me, like something you want to create with this podcast is to like give people access to like what is actually possible, to what they can create in their life. And I fucking love that, because I think that this is a major piece of what you get when you get access to your inner world. It's like you
mm,
stop thinking that you're like chasing after like a Ferrari or something, and you're like, oh, hang on a second, I don't care about Ferraris. What I care about is what my soul path wants, you know. And I think that's what we get access to when we clear out all the conditioning, all the ideas of how mum wants us to get a degree and dad wants us to, you know, marry a rich man or blah blah blah, whatever else there's in there, and we just get to the core of the essence of who we really are. And what I've realized, you know, what actually was a lie for me as in my vision was coming online, I was like, oh, but everybody wants this, you know, everybody wants, you know, this, the kind of success in this way, and everyone wants their ideas to be heard and blah, blah, blah. And the most beautiful, humbling thing that I've experienced of coming into, like, I suppose the archetype of the visionary inside of myself is really that not actually everybody wants that. Like, actually, they want to be around someone, they want to support someone else's pieces, and they've got this amazing fucking epic genius that they want to bring into this experience. And I was like, oh wow, you know, like, and it just like opened me up to seeing like how honored people were to actually help me create my vision.
Mm,
Was like, and actually, you know what, then the even more humbling part of that was like, oh, my vision's a lot of people's vision, you know, like a lot of people see this piece, and that my piece is to channel the cutting edge part of it and see all the other pieces come into it, and like after I've said that piece, and that was like, oh wow, like, so that, yeah, like for me there's been a lot of like claiming my desires, claiming who I am in the world, actually allowing myself to have a voice in who I am, which is like, you know, that's an ongoing process for me. It's like claiming my leadership bit by bit in every moment. And I feel like what we access when we go inside and find the clarity around who we really are is we just get alignment with the path. Like a lot of the calls that I've been doing actually for people that are coming into my advanced leadership training or even into the institute has been like, okay, so here's your vision over, oh, we're probably going to do podcasts, so I'm just like on the
mhm,
camera now. It's like your vision is over on, in like, say in my right hand over here, and then I actually feel where they're sitting in their life, which is like way over, way far away from that. And what I'm often doing is actually just drawing the, like the two hands together, so one actually is sitting on top of the other. And what I'm seeing for myself is like how I feel in my life now is that since I've got a lot of clarity and a lot of connection to what I call my Eros, which is like what's underneath my sexuality, which is my like life force energy. And that's what I believe gets conditioned and what gets like stuck like over it is like I feel like I'm constantly just like watching myself like step completely into my vision. I'm being my vision in moments. And then in other moments, I'm witnessing how my vision's getting bigger and I'm actually moving into alignment with that. But what I see for a lot of people I speak to when I'm calling them into their soul's path is that their path is going in a completely different direction to where they think they want to be going. You know, it's like
mm,
it's not even like in their lifetime, they're not actually going to start walking towards their vision unless they clear out a lot of conditioning, a lot of ideas and beliefs about who they think they are, so they can become who they really are.
mm. Yeah, I think that sometimes I've seen in myself, you know, you find this new way of life and then you can think, oh, everybody needs to live this way. But the like new paradigm is like coming in and finding how we want to do things as individuals, but also as in community and stuff. So when you say the new paradigm, what does that look or feel like for you if everyone kind of started to release this conditioning and these beliefs that they were born into?
Well, I think it's just that it's like this thriving state. And I think that's what I'm waking up to. Like when people get access to their sexuality and to their heart, and they're no longer protecting themselves with those things, and they're no longer like mm, having sex from a place of like, oh, I'm going to do this because this is going to get me what I need in a way. And I mean, and that's across the board. Like people go for sex for their careers, they go after sex to obtain power, they have sex to get their partner to do the dishes. You know, like there's so many reasons that we have sex, which is not just because there's an aliveness and a purity to just move with that current. And actually like for me, I guess sex is actually more of like an uncovering of the mystery.
Mm,
It's like, oh, there's a deeper clarity, there's a polarity here, there's a duality here that's taking me closer to love, you know, and that's often what I'm accessing. um And whereas I think, there's a lot of more corrupt reasons actually people are having sex to have power over people, to get what they want, to control a situation, to leverage something that they're actually wanting to get in their lives, which I don't actually believe is coming from a pure place a lot of the time. It's coming from an idea of how we think we need to have power, which is not really true.
Mm.
And then what I see is, the same with the heart. It's like we think we need to protect our heart because we've been hurt. Like so many of us have been hurt in our childhoods, in our first time we fell in love, like, in business deals, in everything, that anytime we've really let ourselves like open and go, we've actually had a lot of pain. So we often shut our hearts down, and our hearts hold the key and the answers to what we really want in our lives.
And then how do we begin to access those from the heart?
Yeah, it's like for me when we so like I spoke to, there's this kind of concept that I have around Eros, which is like the life force energy that when we come into the world as a little kid, like you see it in children, like they're just like, yeah, do the thing, like can't stop me, it's like that energy. It's like, and then what happens is we get told, like, no, you're too loud. No, you're being too much. Calm down. No, you're disturbing people. Like boom, boom, boom. Like it's just like what happens then is our Eros just gets crushed. You know, it's like um we get suffocated, and our life force energy starts to get suffocated with this conditioning, these ideas, these beliefs, this dogma of who we think we need to be, and who we need to be to make our parents proud, and who we need to be a decent human being, and blah 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 blah. And what happens then is that our Eros gets crushed. And what I feel like I'm doing is just excavating for people, just clearing out all the conditioning, all the ideas of who they think they are, to get back connected to that life force energy, that Eros. And what Freud speaks about the Eros being is that like motivation to be in life, that desire to take the next breath, that hunger, that thirst, that like inquiry into being here in the mystery and in the fullness of everything that life wants to throw at us. And so when we get access to that and we're unraveling all through, what's in our sex and what's in our heart, which is the main two pillars that I've seen that hold the most conditioning and the most pain, we get a new lease of life. Basically, we get like a full opening of that Eros. And when that Eros opens, it goes into like when we get access to it, it opens up our creativity, our sex, our like our desire, our motivation, like our will to like, it's like a willpower, but it's not like a force or something like that. It's more like a force of nature than forcing something to do something. And actually, that's when I believe that we start to live in the cycles of life. And a lot of what I'm like, as I've stepped more into my visionary and my understanding of how the world gets to be, it's like, oh, I'm just having to like, it's not even my will or my desires anymore. It's like I'm so in connection to nature that I'm just allowing nature to drop into me and going, oh, this is what the earth needs now. Oh, this is what I'm hearing needs to happen now. And it's like, and actually another thing I think you get access to is more of your what people call your clairvoyance. But what I've discovered clairvoyancy is um, actually a deeper listening to something that's beyond words. It's kind of like that listening to nature that I spoke of. And when I'm in that, I'm like, oh, I wouldn't even have come up with this idea. I can't even take responsibility for this. This is genius, but it's not mine. It's just like what I'm hearing from the collective, from the world. And it's just deciding to move through me because I'm an open conduit for that information, because I'm not bogged down in who I think I need to be. I'm not even attached to being, the sex teacher or the whatever else there is, because again, that's just another ego. It's just like, whatever you want from me, universe, move through me and show me where you want me to go.
Mm. So how do you marry kind of holding this higher vision of what you want to create for your life or for the institute with then following these threads of aliveness that come through you in each moment?
Oh, it's actually quite effortless. I'm like, I don't really try to do anything.
Mm.
It's almost like, well, just to give you some like understanding, like when I decided to be the sex teacher and be all these pieces, it was like I was on an ayahuasca journey. Like I was on the medicine, and like the the universe or whatever happens when we go into those medicine journeys started to move through me and just told me and showed me everything. And that's what I asked. I said, look, just show me my purpose. That was my first journey. And it just like came into fruition. Then I said, show me my career. And it just showed me everything. And I said, all right, show me my magic. Because it started to show me how I was going to be listening to the message. And it was just very much through, yeah, I'm like, well, how deep do I share on this piece? I'm like, but it was just like really listening to the planets, listening to the seasons, listening to the cycles of life, um, utilizing utilizing the riches of the earth, which is, you know, is like herbs, spices, you know, our my menstrual cycle, my, you know, my, yeah, like my partner's semen. Like there's just like we are constantly surrounded by these intense elixirs of the earth, like of like the nature of who we really are. And we don't know what to do with them because we've been so disconnected from the truth of who we are. And like my journey has been just reconnecting to that. Actually, there's a piece that's coming up for me to share now, which is around like those threads of aliveness, and how I gauge them and how I listen to them is actually what gives me goosebumps. You know, like I actually just had a moment there. I was like, should I share this on a podcast in a public forum? And I got like full goosebumps up the back of my arms. And I was like, oh, okay, this is truth, you know? And actually, I wanted to say this is a testament to you, Georgie, because I feel like this is your transmission. Like you create the safety for these pieces to come out of me. And that's like one of the pieces that I love about our relationship, you know, a yes to coming on your podcast. There's a lot of podcasts that I say no to nowadays, you know, and it's like this feeling of just like, and actually that's the piece actually when you said to me what the question was, how do I trust that I'm following the vision and moving with the, you know, how do I marry being the sex teacher or whatever with the threads of aliveness? I'm following the goosebumps, you know? And when somebody asks me to be on their podcast, sometimes I'm like, oh, I get to know. Like, and it's just really clear. And I don't sometimes have a lot of logic for that. Like, like people are like, oh, but they've got all these followers and all this influence. Like, you should go on there. It's good exposure. I'm like, I'm getting a no. Like, I can't explain that. But it's like, but when you asked me, I was like, no, I get a yes. Like, you know, and I was like, this feels accurate. I trust that, you know. And what I feel happens when we start to follow our goosebumps of aliveness, and it's like, oh, my nipples are hard, and I'm like, oh, this is like something is exciting, something in my body, and I'm starting to follow that. That's when the magic happens, and I'm like, oh wow, now we're in this conversation. I'm sharing about the depth of my process, which I've probably never shared on a podcast before. So, yeah, just thank you for bringing that piece out of me. I'm really grateful.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So if when you say like listening to your body, I remember, well, yeah, looking back in like a few years ago, I would have been like, what does that even mean, listening to your body? How do you listen to your body and as like in daily life for decision making and doing things and moving through the world?
Yeah. Well, I guess the main piece is the goosebumps. Like
Hmm.
I'm tracking for aliveness all the time. Um, so like I'm tracking for like, and a lot of people when they hear aliveness, they think excitement or like arousal because I spoke about my nipples being hard. But even like for me, sex, it's like I don't even have sex when I feel horny anymore. It's like horny is a bit of a, mm, I think horny happens actually for me when I am feeling a bit stressed. It's like I'm wanting a relief. And that's like one place that I feel horniness from. And I do get stressed, like that happens. And that's when I feel horny and I have sex from that place of like, oh, I need to relieve something now, you know. That's kind of the masturbation energy for me. I'm like, oh, I want to, and I want to say like I have nothing against like masturbating or just like getting one out or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like I think that's a beautiful space to be in. I think there's a reason why our bodies offer us that beautiful gift to like allow stress relief to happen. And I think that's what horniness is. But I still have a really like strong libido when I am not stressed and when I don't need relief and when I'm like feeling like fully abundant and like expansive and like anything can happen. And for me, what happens in that moment is like I'm just tracking the aliveness. And I'm actually a lot of what's happening there is like I'm getting goosebumps, my nipples are getting hard, or I'm feeling like a draw. It's like a magnetism. And that's kind of how I feel it in my body. It's like, and how I got access to the goosebumps. Again, I know I'm kind of just repeating myself, but it is like by clearing through all that, the conditioning. Because now what basically happened when I was clearing through my conditioning, and what was quite difficult and clearing through my conditioning, was like having to be with all the places that I'd actually protected myself. And what was protecting me was like a lot of the emotions that I didn't want to feel. So, you know, anger, like I feel like we're told that we shouldn't feel anger, and we shouldn't feel sadness, and we shouldn't feel fear, you know. And I actually had to get really comfortable with those things. And some of the way that I word this on the at the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy is to talk about running things on the vertical current. So when we are feeling overwhelmed by our anger or our sadness, we actually, like, we want other people to feel that. We want it, like, you know, when someone walks in a room and they're really angry and you're like, whoa, they want everyone in the room to feel that anger, because they're fucking vulnerable and they can't feel that on their own because it's making them so uncomfortable. And so what they're doing is like projecting it outwards. And they're like, no, I'm not going to feel this alone. Everyone's going to feel this with me. And they kind of like take everyone down with them. And people did this with sadness as well. It's like people like get in their sadness and they're like, or their depression. And they like, no, I need everyone, like, I'm going to bring the whole room down, because this is the only way they can obtain power. And, you know, you see this in romantic partnerships a lot too. It's like, if they're in a bad mood, then I can't be in my joy. Like, I think so many people feel that. Like, I hear it all the time. So what actually happens is what they're doing is actually, like, those people that are like not able to be with their emotions on their own, is they are running things on a horizontal current. So if you think about that, like if there's a horizontal current coming out of me, it's like I'm pulling everyone into that field of going, no, you're going to feel my sadness with me. No, you're going to feel my anger with me. No, I'm in fear and I'm anxious and I want you all to feel anxious too. So I'm going to put you on edge. You know, and we see these power dynamics all the time, and especially from people in leadership. Like, just like, you know, when I used to work in retail, or when I worked in like back end kitchens, you know, like it was the same principles. Like, people were just running their power by making everyone feel their emotions with them on the horizontal current. Where I believe true power lies is actually when you have the ability to feel your emotions on your own. And that's what I call running things on the vertical current. So it's like there's actually something so beautiful when you start being able to just go, wow, I feel really sad. And you don't hide that from people. You don't shut it down. You don't say like, oh, I can't let anyone else feel that with me. And you just actually start like vibrating it through your body and running it on that vertical current. And that's kind of what I invite everyone to do. And same with anger. Like, you can actually be so angry and like loud and in it, and not be like pushing it outwards, not be taking anyone down with you. And it's like, and when you do that, do you know what that creates? A lot of aliveness. People are so drawn to it. They're like, oh my God, like that is actually erotic. Like, that is so erotic when people have the ability to feel their emotions on the vertical current.
Mm. And I feel like for me, that's when the self-pleasure practice that I do in a container kind of, well, not kind of, ripples out through the rest of my life. So the being able to be with the emotions and the sensations and feel what's happening inside my body then just starts to happen when an unexpected event happens and I'm with a group of people and I have to deal with it. I can then almost just go into a self-pleasure practice then, and the whole kind of daily life becomes it's like a way of life.
100%. And this is like, you know, when you said to me earlier, like, what is it that witnessing creates? I think what it also creates is the ability to be with everything that we are on the vertical current, because it's the first time, like when you be with your sexuality, you're actually like, when you're actually opening that part that I call Eros. So what's underneath your sexuality can open, your life force can open, your Eros can open when you actually have the space to go, oh, nothing actually needs to happen right now. And I don't have to make anything happen. I don't have to orgasm. I don't have to feel pleasure. I don't have to feel my arousal. I can just allow my body to speak to me. And that's what's happening in witnessing. And what witnessing creates is like, when you witness someone in their self-pleasure, you're giving them the opportunity to be with their sexuality, to be with their the fullness of who they are as a human being, and not wanting a single thing from them. Whoa, like breaking, like That never happens. Like, there is so little time in our lives that we're actually offered that. This is why I don't call what we do therapy, because actually in therapy, people want something from you. They want you to open up. They want you to do something. They want something to happen so that they can say something back to you, so that they can see that there's some sort of progress is happening. And this is why what we're doing is actually beyond therapy. It's actually like, it's not, it shouldn't be that groundbreaking, but it is. It's actually just letting humans be humans and actually allowing humanity to unravel itself. And yeah, I'll go into the deeper vision of this in a moment, but what actually happens when you allow another human being to be in their sexuality and not want anything from them, to be in the fullness of their humanity and not want anything from them, is that they completely unravel to the truth of who they are, and they get complete access to the truth of what their sexuality wants. They get the truth to actually hear what they want for their own life. So all those pieces that we just spoke to, it's like that's actually what's happening when we're doing self-pleasure. And I just want to go a little bit into the vision there. It's like, imagine if every human being had access to that. And what I'm seeing, like what I actually see for most of us, is that our sexuality gets corrupt from a really young age. And what happens for like a lot of humans is that they don't understand the energy of like giving and taking. And what happens is a lot of people end up getting raped. A lot of people end up getting molested as children. Like, that, it's not just the world I live in. Like, I watch it on the news every day. There's murder, there's all these different energies that people are blaming on sex. Sex is pure. Sex is actually stunning and beautiful and clear and clean. What isn't is all the conditioning that we throw on top of that. And so, we see, like, it's not that our world is full of evil people. It's that our world is full of people that have been suppressed inside of their expression of who they really are. And they haven't been taught any way to be with the depth of their humanity. And they're hurting. And hurt people hurt people. So when we actually clear through these layers, not only are we helping people clear through their layers of trauma around the times when they've been hurt or they've been violated or raped or been sexually corrupted, we're actually clearing the layers where they are actually corrupt sexually, and they're actually hurting, and they parts of them want to hurt other people. And so we're just looking at the sliding scale there. I've used a very triggering part of that to talk about rape or talk about violation. Yeah, so what we're creating is that we're actually creating a movement by actually being in that ability to witness somebody in their self-pleasure. We're changing things on a micro level and allowing sex to be in the body. And we're also changing things on a macro level, because what we're creating is like actually a society where people are not in corrupt sexual energy anymore. And imagine a world where people are just like walking down the street and being in the fullness of their sexuality, in the fullness of their heart, and like what that would create. And I mean, I'm starting to see that in my circles, and what I see in that is so much creativity, so much thriving, so much beautiful relationships where people are not getting hurt anymore. People are not like afraid of like falling in love and being who they really are. They're not afraid of saying that thing of like of what they think they shouldn't say to their partner, because it's not that way anymore. They're just actually allowed to be who they are. And and there's like a synergizing that starts to happen in that, and that's when I see people move from like survival in life to thriving. So actually I think that was one of your questions, like how do you access more wealth, how do you access more of the abundance that you want to unlock, that your dream career and all that sort of stuff. You get clear with your eros, you get clear with your life force, and it just starts to unfold, because you're no longer in fear of taking that big leap of faith. You're no longer needing the safety net of some relationship that's actually holding you back. You're actually able to be with your heartbreak. You're able to be with the fear and the anger and the things that come up and what you're feeling, because you can run it on a vertical current.
Yeah, I find that with things such as self-pleasure and like tantra, where sex isn't as suppressed as it is in the current mainstream society, some people kind of get this construed idea of what it is, that tantra is all about sex and self-pleasure is all about touching your genitals. And it's like, when we open up our sexuality, it's not, the world's not going to be people having sex everywhere. It's just becomes an innocent expression of ourselves in every moment. Yeah, amazing. So is there anything, as we come to near the end of the conversation, that you'd like to share with the listeners? I'm curious as well a little bit about what you mentioned at the beginning, like what you shared at the was it Taste of Love festival? You said it was like some cutting edge stuff.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, what actually happened at Taste of Love was yeah, we held a workshop and we basically just like whittled everything down to people feeling actually really comfortable to be in their sexuality around one another, and realizing that you know, how pure it was. And it just like, you know, it just opened and people were able to like just have sex if they wanted to have sex in the room, and then people were not having sex, and it just became this very nonchalant experience where people were having sex, not having sex, being with their sexuality, being with their emotions, and it just opened just through the complete decolonizing of their heart and their sex. So that was what opened for on that, and it was just, you know, and I just made up all these fun games which were quite childlike actually and quite innocent to get there, you know. It was quite funny. And I think that's really what I'm learning, is just like this returning to innocence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what I'd love to leave you with is like, and leave the listeners with is like, if you are wanting to follow your soul's path, just look at where your heart and your sex are colonized, and see what you can do about decolonizing them. And the first thing that I say to people is, where can you create radical discontinuity? Where can you break away from everything that you've done, and everything that you know, and just go, oh, that's how I usually act or react to that thing. I'm going to do the complete opposite. And then just see what comes of that. And then I mean, if you're ready for the deep dive and you want to have some real fun, then I think you should come to the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy, because that's where it happens. That's where the magic happens, in my opinion. Like, I love watching people pop, you know, like we're starting again on Monday, and I've just got enrolled like another 31 people into the program. There's still applications coming in, and yeah, I'm just experiencing like the all of the beautiful work that my students have done, including yourself, and how transformative I've seen people be in this space. It's just a knock-on effect now, and I just think people just get what happens in this container. So it's pretty exciting to watch now. Just people are like, I don't know half the people in the container, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. You know, I'm just like, I mean, it's been that way for a while now, just like meeting people once they drop into the container, because the whole thing is just its own entity. It's got its own gravitational pull now. So I feel very honored to be a conduit for this amazing thing that wants to birth itself into the world.
So if people want to find out more, where can they find you?
Yeah, just go to victoriaredbard.com and you'll be able to find the syllabus on there, so you can find out all the things that happen at the school. Program's 9.5 months now, and it has a lot of magic in it. Yeah, and if I do other things, I've got like some in-person stuff coming up. Yeah, there's a lot of pieces that are moving. So yeah, I would just invite everyone to check it out. We've got like a lot of free giveaways. I've got like if you go onto the website as well, you can get access to my sex magic meditation, which actually also allows you to tune into your desires and what you truly want to bring through. So yeah, for people that are wanting that, I recommend checking that out.
Amazing. And where in the world are you based at the moment for the listeners?
I am on the border of New South Wales and Queensland in Australia. So yeah, Gold Coast area.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, the school for me was life-changing in so many ways, so I highly recommend it to anyone listening that's feeling hard nipples right now. Thank you so much.
Also have I said we're also dick tingles because we also have opened it up
Yes.
to men now.
Yes, yes. So thank you so much for all that you shared. I really admire and love your perspectives on life, and I hope that it's inspired the listeners as much as it has for me.
Thank you. Love you lots. Thanks for having me.